You're watching a TGM production. Hello and welcome back to Tom Mason, The Interviews. Yes, we're back doing another wonderful interview. Now, if you're wondering, Tom, you've had a lot of interviews today. Well, yes, I have. On this channel, we had Steve Best on Tom's Comedy Club. As of time of recording this, just finished uploading Adele Cliff interview from Joking Apart, and now we've got a new interview here. Our guest today is best known for singing incredible traditional songs across various programmes on one of the leading Scottish Gaelic channels, BBC Other, is one and only Ruairidh.
Hello. Good evening, Tom. How are you?
I'm alright. So we shall start at the very beginning because Julie Andrews once said it was a good place to start, and so far I've not yet disagreed with her. How did you get into the world I call singing?
I started singing. I get asked that question rather a lot, and I can't say that there was any really one point. Uh, Growing up in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, on a small island called South Uist, singing was we were surrounded by the Gaelic language, which was my mother tongue. It was my first language, and music, and particularly Gaelic music.
Yeah.
And I remember being taught by my mother at a very, very early age, being taught the old traditional Gaelic songs from my island and other islands indeed. And then going out to what we would call, in the Gaelic language, we would call céilís.
Mm.
And a céilí, for people who don't know, uh, literally is a social gathering.
Mm.
But in this instance, a céilí would be held in a village hall, a church hall, and you would have traditional Scottish dances and Gaelic. Everybody spoke in Gaelic, and you would have songs, and you would have storytelling, and you would have perhaps somebody reciting some poetry, old poetry. And that was where I learned in early childhood
Mm.
the craft. That was I remember watching and admiring the old singers of the
Mm.
islands, and learning a great deal, either the songs or their interpretations of the songs. And I remember loving every second of it. That's when I started, and I first performed on a stage nearly 20 years ago now, to a very packed audience
Yeah.
in St. Peter's Village Hall. We had about 200 people in the hall. I remember that night in the old days of the Céilís, about 20 years ago. And I got up at 4 years old and I sang. And I remember at the end of this particular song, it was a song from the time of the Second World War.
Mm.
And I got up and I sang this song. And when I was finished, I looked around the hall, and all the older people, particularly those who had served and those who were alive at the
Mm.
time, were all crying. And I remember thinking that must have been quite good.
Yeah.
And so I've carried on. It was Noel Coward put it marvelously. He said, I was trained in infancy as a show off, and have continued triumphantly ever since. It was that sort of idea. So I ever since then, I have never really looked back. And I thought, well, this must be for me. And to be quite honest, I'm not quite qualified to do anything else. So I've just been very happy to sing. And as I said, I've been singing publicly for nearly 20 years. Um, and I hopefully don't see any sign of slowing down for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And one of the things that you did to, let's say, to end last year and start the new year, all in the same hour, shall we
Mhm.
say? Probably not the exact same hour because it's midnight, because it goes from 59. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, numbers, maths, not my structure. What was it like welcoming in the new year on BBC Unaba?
It is a marvelous program. I've taken part before in that special. I did the 22 going into 23 New Year's program, or Hogmanay as we call it in Scotland, and then this year 25 going
Yeah.
into 26. And it is just a wonderful evening because you're surrounded by musicians, you're surrounded by people who love the music, who
Yeah.
love the culture, who love the language, and it's really great fun.
Yeah,
And I got to take my mother and my sisters and my wonderful partner and her cousin came as well, and we had just a really wonderful evening. And it also means that you can't get too drunk because you've got to stay good for the television. So it's also a
yeah,
very good excuse not to take anything to drink.
yeah,
Um, but I know I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope it came across to the. It's very difficult to tell in the room or on the
yeah,
television how people are taking it because it's live, and it's a very difficult thing. Um, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was truly, it was a joyful
yeah.
experience. I mean, it was relaxed and it was joyful, and nobody was stressed, and everybody knew what they had to do. Of
Mm,
course, we did. We'd rehearsed it so much.
yeah.
It was a really happy experience. It was wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that what that show does, and no other show has ever done, and I think all shows should take that forward, is when they're introducing it, they've said they'll read as many WhatsApps as they can. No other
Mm.
show on British TV that I know of has ever made it clear they're not going to be able to get through every comment
Yeah,
of people, but they're going to try. And
yeah.
I think more shows should take that on board. And one of the other things I've noticed, and you can probably see it's across New Year's Eve programming in most where they do proper things.
Mhm.
BBC Oliver is the only one that's everyone's well dressed, everyone's well behaved, no one's jumping up and
Mhm.
down looking rowdy. Why do
Yeah.
you think that? Why do you think that that's more like looks more portrayed as this? A more of a professional environment rather than when you go to BBC Scotland and they're all jumping up and down listening to, I don't know, Marty Pellow.
Well, I think, well, being very fair to Marty and to all of the ones who did the New Year's programme on BBC Scotland, I enjoyed it. I saw parts of it and it looked wonderful. I think the thing with the Gaelic channel particularly
Mm,
is, the Gael, we take a great pride in ourselves and in
yeah,
our music. And I always say that the Gaelic language is one of the oldest in Europe. It
yeah,
predates German and French, Italian, etc., Russian, which is true. And we have some of the most wonderful music in the world. And I think, for a start, we should all be dressed appropriately for it.
yeah,
Um, and I think people also realize that it's live television, that they're going to be seen by millions of people, and they want to make a good impression. Certainly, whenever I'm on the stage or have a public engagement, I'm always well dressed for it. I always do my best. I'm rather casual, I must admit. Tonight, I've been out all day. I've been out at university all day today, so I'm not long back in the door. But always when I'm on stage, a
yeah,
suit or a kilt and a tie, a shirt and tie. It's just a must for me. Otherwise, I feel quite naked going on stage without it. It's very, very uncomfortable for me to
yeah,
go on stage without it. Um, and that's just where I come from, and that was our uh, grounding. That
yeah,
was, well, as we were raised, we had to be nicely dressed for what we did. Um, but no, I understand what you mean. But the
yeah,
audience were very smartly dressed, and
yeah.
the musicians were very smartly dressed, and it elevates the whole thing. I
It
think a
does.
great deal. It really just it takes it from here to here,
Yeah,
and it's very pleasing to the eye,
yeah,
as well as the ear, listening to the wonderful music.
yeah. And I think I don't know whether it's the way it's recorded or it's my speakers at home, but when you watch it on BBC Scotland and then you watch it on BBC One, you can sort of not really understand what's being sang about because it might be the way things are a mix of they're both pre-recorded or it might be my own speakers. I don't know, but
Mhm.
why do you think that version is more? It's easier to it seems like a more fun environment because it sounds like because it's done live, it's all the mixing seems a lot better. Why
Yes.
do you think that's the case?
I think it certainly comes into it
Yeah,
that because the program is live,
yeah,
that there is that sense of this is happening on the spot. And it is a live gig, and
yeah,
it's great fun when you've got a live audience. And I mean, you can't beat that. Hold on, yes, you can't beat that. But the sound, we're very fortunate
yeah,
because we have really some incredible sound engineers in Scotland, particularly who work with musicians on the traditional music scene.
yeah,
Also, the fact that we have rehearsed this vigorously
yeah,
for days. they have been mixed and they have been prepared for not
Yeah,
only in the room sound but live broadcast
yeah,
audio. So I mean, they really know their stuff, and I'm very pleased to hear it comes across as clear, and
yeah,
that it comes across as uh, that it's been well balanced and well maneuvered. And as for the fun, uh, that's because it is fun. I
yeah,
mean, like I said,
yeah.
it's you've got 200 drunk Scotsmen in a room jumping about at New Year. Of course, it's
Yeah,
going to be great fun,
yeah,
and certainly it was for us.
yeah,
But I'm very glad that that's the way that it came across.
yeah. And you might not know the technical side of this, but why do you think that that's live and other New Year's type shows that roughly that I've seen, why are pre-recorded? Why do you think that's the live one, unlike the others?
I don't know why. I think it was very ambitious at the beginning when they said they wanted to do a live program. It is the most ambitious program of BBC Alappa's year.
Yeah,
Um, but I think people watch it because of that. I think people watch it because they know it's live,
yeah,
and they know that they're celebrating the new year with the people on the telly, and we are celebrating the new year with the people who are watching.
yeah,
And for live television, it's actually very intimate,
yeah,
and uh, I think it just we decide we. I think they saw that there was an opening
yeah,
in the market, that there was something that people wanted in that new year to feel authentic, and they wanted
yeah,
it to feel Highland, and they wanted it to feel real.
yeah,
And so they decided, well, we're going to do it live. And it was, in my view, the best decision they ever made. Uh, of course, that's not to say that the pre-recorded programs don't have that same energy about
yeah,
them, but I think there's something about having it live
yeah.
that you can't compete with it, in my view.
Yeah, and I think that having it live really does do that because when you have BBC One, for example, Ronan Keating cuts to the fireworks, cuts to the live bit, and so does BBC Scotland. They cut to their live section, and that makes sense, and you can feel the sense. But in the room, watching all the confetti cannons and everyone going, well, it really is New Year's. It really is that time. You
Mhm,
sort of feel more happy and elated because
mhm.
you're watching this, you like not just sat at home with your family and your annoying animals, if you've got any, but you're watching it with millions of others in
Yeah,
across the world, and because that thing isn't as done as often as it once was. Do you
no,
think
that's
that's
true.
another reason why it is a success? Because it's like millions of people are joining you lot in the studio, having a great time and doing it whilst at midnight you're gonna be able to celebrate with everyone in the studio.
Oh, it absolutely comes into it. It absolutely comes into it. And as you say, because we all know that, I remember being in the green room with the musicians beforehand, and two of them were going off to the main stage. I was on the satellite stage after the New Year. Um, and pardon me, they were going over, and I said, "This is the last time I'm going to see you this year,"
Yeah,
and then they went off to the stage, and I went round to where my family was, because I wasn't performing immediately. And I was able to say Happy New Year to my
yeah,
mother and to my siblings and to my partner, and then hop onto the stage and go and do my thing. So it was marvelous
yeah,
fun, really marvelous fun, and I enjoyed it immensely. Um, and you're absolutely right. It does add that joyfulness to it, that festive feeling that
yeah,
it has at the new year. It really does elevate it to that special level. Um, it's such a great program
yeah,
at the new year.
yeah. And another thing you've done that is also fantastic, of not just because of how joyous the music is, it's just because the venue itself just seems it seems intimate, but at the
Mm,
same time, it just seems very fascinating is the
mm.
word I'm going to use. But what was
Yeah.
it like making a TV show about performing in the Barrowlands?
But the Barrowlands was a wonderful place, and I had never set foot in the building
Yeah,
at all before that day. Although I'd heard a great deal about it, and I'd known many wonderful musicians who had performed there.
mm,
Um, the Barrowlands evening was a great success, and the boys of Trail West, who are celebrating 15 years of bandhood, um, really pulled out all the stops, and they made it a wonderful day for us. And we rehearsed, and we had over 1,000 people in the room, but yet it did feel very close knit. It did feel very much so that we were a part of just a very small, intimate gathering. And the other bands were there, the Pine Lee band and my own backing band, John Carmichael on the accordion, Rory Matheson on piano, and Andrew McPherson on drums. We had a really marvelous evening, a really marvelous evening. Um, and it was just, and of course the crews who were there, Duncan MacDonald from Sky, who was the sort of producing and creating and interviewing folk that evening. It was done to such an excellent level. And very slick and very professional. And of course, Megan, who was interviewing us afterwards, to sort of do a run through of the evening. I mean, the program was very expertly done and very, very excellently put together, and everybody played their part in that. But for me, it was really just a very lovely evening to be able to go and to perform in this absolutely iconic venue
Mm.
in front of a very appreciative audience. And I've not seen it on the television. I make a rule of not watching myself at all if I can avoid it. I hate it. Um, but it certainly, from what I've been told, came across very well.
Yeah, yeah, and it is really joyous, and I've seen it twice now in not that further space because I think that it shows that you can do when you do a performance in of that extent correctly,
Mhm.
it's reviewable. And one of the things that I find fascinating, and I might be wrong in saying this, but that hearing that the venue floor is springy. What
Yes,
just like Blackpool, must be Blackpool Towers.
Buckle Tower. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Is it actual springs or is it just some mechanics that make it feel springy?
Sprung wood really refers to the space that there is between the wood itself and
Hmm.
what is underneath.
Yeah,
And so that there's a little bit of give, and also the floor is not waxed.
yeah,
So rather than a gymnasium floor where it has to be waxed and totally
yeah,
there's no give, there's a little bit of give in the wood, so that when you bounce down on it, it sort of pushes you a little, it pushes you up a wee
yeah,
bit. So particularly for country dancing, for Scottish country dancing, it's a wonderful uh, uh, it's the best floor you could
yeah,
get for country dancing.
yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. And if I was ever on a springy floor, I would be really nervous because you would feel that if you had so many people on it, it would break, but it just doesn't seem
No,
to
it
be
doesn't.
there.
Certainly, and that's because the wood has given
Yeah,
it. That's because, if it was a solid floor, it would break. But
yeah,
because the wood is able to take the pressure and then give it back,
yeah.
it's just marvelous for big groups of people.
Yeah. And one of I think the key highlights of that program to me, um, is the moment when you're singing a really beautiful song, and it's the fact that you are performing it, and it's really good, but then when the audience join in, and it
Mm.
just sounds like a really well rehearsed choir, not just hunters. It's something.
Yeah.
Why do you think that it sounded so good? Is it because they're all massive fans, or is it just because it was just a coincidence and they all just harmonized quite well?
I think, well, for performances such as that, I tend to select songs which are very well known,
Yeah,
very, very well known. Um, and so the audience are able to sing along anyway, and they'll know the songs. And I've been very fortunate that my audiences happen to be full of very good singers.
yeah,
Um, and so it does, for me, it adds a huge amount to it, because rather than me just singing at an audience,
yeah,
I'm getting something back
yeah,
from them, uh, which just makes it so much more joyful and enjoyable for
yeah.
me. Um, so certainly, but I've been very fortunate with some of my audiences that I've had over the years, and that evening was certainly no exception. And they were very good, and they were singing out and shouting along and dancing along, and it makes you feel so much better on stage knowing that what you're doing is in that moment appreciated.
Yeah. And do you feel like you do a better performance because the audience are giving you the reaction that you want?
Oh, certainly. If you have an audience uh, full of people who are delighted that you're there and singing along with your songs, it does make you feel as though, well, I'm very happy I came here and I'm very happy they're enjoying it. And it makes you feel so much better than that it's not been a wasted evening. Well, there's nothing worse than sitting in a room full of people and they're just staring at you.
Yeah.
And just with that awful grimace on their face or something. But no, it was a what really just I couldn't have hoped for a better audience.
Yeah. And throughout your career and throughout life, as we've learned, why do you think that Gaelic is so important, not just as in a language, but as in the culture overall?
Well, it's important to me because it's the language that I spoke growing up. I spoke Gaelic long before I ever spoke English. Um, it's important to the people of the Highlands because it's what separates us, what makes us unique from people who live in the east of Scotland and people who live in the Central Belt and in the lowlands of Scotland. It's important for I would say it's important for Scotland and wider than that, the British Isles, because we are very much so, although our own thing,
Mm.
very much so a part of a wider community of Scottish culture and British culture. Um, and we absolutely have our place in it, and it's important that others know that. But it's important because it's a language which has been spoken for thousands of years in one form or another. We've got, well, Gaelic, which came of Irish, which came of um, uh, old, well, shared roots with the early Germanic languages and came from what is now the Low Countries, places like Holland, for example. And before that came from parts of where we would now call Asia Minor, is where everything started out in Galicia, and Galatia, I should say, in these places. But it's important because just because of how long it's been there,
Yeah.
and for it to go would be a terrible shame. Um, and uh, and it's important for me because that's how I make my living. And, yes, I think it's very important that people uh, listen to Gaelic music, A, because it's the most beautiful music in the world, and B, because I need to earn a living. There are many, many reasons, and everybody will have their own uh, reasons as to why Gaelic is important to them, but they are my reasons.
Yeah. And I think that when you hear about the Gaelic and Welsh and Irish, and you hear about the fact that it's becoming, I wouldn't say a craze because that isn't the word, but a boom, more people
Yeah.
learning it now than you would have heard about like 10, 15 years ago. Why do you think people are now trying to learn the languages now? Why do you think now's the time for people to get back to the roots?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I think there are many answers to it. The cynic in me will say guilt, that we have allowed our language to get to a position where it is almost classed as a dead language.
Hmm.
And people are realizing that they should have done more as children, and parents are realizing they should have spoken Gaelic with their children.
Yeah.
People like my mother's generation, for example, they have rather a lot, in my view, to answer for. People are awfully quick to blame my generation
Yeah.
for saying, well, you don't speak Gaelic and you're the reason that Gaelic's dead. I say, well, hold on. I said, how do you expect children of my age to speak Gaelic
Hmm.
if Gaelic speaking parents wouldn't speak it to them as
Yeah.
children? That's not my fault.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I think people are understanding more now than they ever did before the benefits of bilingual education in children, children being educated in to some extent in the Gaelic language. Um, and also, I think a lot of people want to feel as though they belong to a community.
Yeah.
We see a huge number of non-Gaels. I refer to a Gael as a Gaelic-speaking
Yeah.
Highlander, or just a Highlander, a West Coast Highlander. Um, we have a huge number of people who are not even Scottish, but who feel as though they belong to a
Yeah.
certain community. They feel as though they feel an affinity to the Gaelic language and to its people and to its music. And if that's what encourages them to learn Gaelic, all the better for them. And I'll always be very encouraging of anybody who wishes to learn Gaelic.
yeah,
Um, but I think there are a wide variety, and people will always have their own reasons for doing
yeah.
anything. But they are my views on why I think we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that what helps it to be an accessible thing to do is having Gaelic and having it on apps, even though people might disagree that it's a good app, but apps like Duolingo, having it so that it's prominent that A, people know about it, and
Mm.
B, it shows interest and intrigue because people might not have heard of it and they might go,
Yeah.
oh, what's this? Do you think that's helpful that the global stage is helping to promote it, not just within Scotland?
Oh, absolutely. And there are a great number of people behind that. I mean, you mentioned Speak Gaelic and Joy Dunlop, a very good friend, and she's a wonderful person, and she's done a huge amount to create something new for people to be able to come to Gaelic. And you have the old programs, Speaking Our Language, for example, and you have Gaelic broadcasting in the form of the radio,
Mm,
um, which encourages a great number of people to learn Gaelic and to speak in Gaelic. Also, you know, Duolingo is rather a good app. I don't have it myself, but I heard a friend of mine was learning Gaelic via Duolingo,
yeah,
and I asked her if I could hear what it was like, and she played me some of the recordings of the things that they have on the app, and it was very good. It was very, very good.
yeah,
And so there are many ways for people to come to Gaelic, and
yeah,
also the singers and the musicians. People like Julie Fowlis has taken Gaelic to an international audience, and many, many others. I mean, I myself have played rather a small role in that with broadcasting, and indeed taken my singing to other countries, and that's always been very, very well received. Um, but I think it's just a case of doing what we can, and every man doing what he can to promote Gaelic or to promote his cause, and Gaelic is my cause, and among other things, and I do my best to promote it both within and without out with Scotland.
yeah. And I think that when you see apps like Duolingo, what's really interesting about that is that it's not just particular. I think it's across all languages. You can learn how to say certain phrases and sentences, such as "the dog really wants a bone." Wait,
Mm.
no, he actually wants a fish. What
Yeah.
about that bone? And it's like sentences that make no sense. But you then learn those key words that you might use
Yes.
elsewhere, even though it might sound silly. And I think that's what's helpful because you want a little bit of comedy in your life. You want to be able to have a fun way. Do you think that that would help people to learn in a fun way because they're learning sentences that might make no sense but will make them laugh and they're learning whilst laughing at the same time?
Oh, I think so indeed. And the thing about the funny sentences is that, of course, you would never say that to anybody,
Yeah,
but that the point of those funny sentences are to teach you structure
yeah,
and what goes where, the nouns and the verbs and the adverbs and the adjectives, where they all go,
mm,
and why why it works like that in your cases, your vocative and your genitive cases, and all
yeah,
these various bits and bobs. You know what I mean? And so they're all those silly sentences, and they are so outrageous because it helps one to remember
yeah,
where things will go in a sentence, and the structure of a sentence. And I think that turns people onto the language as well because they think, well, this is utterly ludicrous, but it's good fun.
yeah.
So it's very important to keep people interested and to keep them entertained as they're learning.
Yeah, and one of the other things you've done that is it's in a long list of well, Rob Brydon did a documentary series in around this, but including performing at this one venue, and it showcases that it's this grandiose place. But what was it like making a TV show at the Grand Old Opry?
Oh goodness me, that was oh, you're going back now a wee bit after the goodness me. That was done in did we record that in 2023? Oh, we must have done. It was a great program. A really good fun, high energy, again, wonderful people on the program. And I was only doing just a very small thing. I was presenting it. The program had been created in the 90s, um, before my time, of course. And it was wonderful to look back and to see all of the old, well, not the old, but the familiar faces who we
Yeah,
know and love in the Gaelic world and the Scottish world today. Uh, and some who are unfortunately no longer with us, of course.
Mm.
But it was a great fun and very well received by the watching population and the people who tuned into the Gaelic and again further afield. Um, but I was very pleased with how well received it was and how well it went down. Um, so it was certainly good fun. Certainly good fun to do it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and with having BBC Alba as this channel and it being attached to what is known as the anti-Beavers, as some people call it, and it's been this like big thing in Britain. Do you think that having it on the BBC gives it a higher platform than if it was on its own?
Oh, naturally. I mean, you put the BBC to anything, and it gives it a higher platform. And some people will, I suppose, have their own ideas as to the BBC and whether it's right or wrong in doing the things that it does. But in my view, the BBC is still the gold standard of broadcasting anywhere in the world. I mean, you listen to the World Service, and it is exceptional. Um, I think it's done very good things for the Gaelic language in particular when it started out and promoting Gaelic certainly on a very, very national level. Um, and I think it's doing the same now and also on international level with the introduction of social media and being able to push things all over the world instantly. Um, and no, it has only, in that regard, it has only done good things for Gaelic by showing the world that we are a very wonderful, vibrant, uh, and a very sort of varied sort of culture. I mean, there's a huge variety in the Gaelic world and performance and what people do, and that must be celebrated.
Yeah, and it's has some incredible shows amongst the ones we've mentioned. I think one of the other favourites of mine, just because it seems so absurd, is a program about a woman that lives life as a mermaid, and so she
Yes,
just. And I think it sounds like a really odd program, and you're thinking, but the odder it is, the more likely you are to watch it because you want to know what on earth
yes.
is a woman doing living life as a
And
mermaid.
she's so wonderful on that program. I have no television here, you see, at all, but I see clips. I don't watch the telly at all, but I see clips on social media, and she just seems wonderful, fun. And I've never met her, unfortunately, this lovely lady, but uh, and like you say, people watch it and people respond to that sort of thing because it's great, great telly, wonderful telly, and slightly absurd, perhaps, but. Still, always an audience. There's always an audience for absurd things.
Yeah, and I think that it captures. So you like when you watch shows like Gogglebox, you don't on there. There's some shows on there that you wouldn't personally watch, but you're intrigued by it anyway, and you would
Yes.
never normally press play because you're that intrigued, but you're intrigued enough to watch other people. And I think that that's what this show does. It's in that level of you might not think about watching it, but really you want to work out the logistics of a real life mermaid, and I
Mm,
think that's sort of enters you into this world going, yeah, I actually did enjoy this woman saying that I lived life as a mermaid and showing us that mermaid tale, which
yeah.
I still think is a little bit odd. But again, I'm not a great swimmer, so I wouldn't ever be a merman. But one of the other things you've worked on, and to the words of Martin Compston, it's themed as this like holy grail, if you will. It's very well known and it's spoke highly of. But what was it like performing at the 2024 Hooli?
The hula was quite unlike anything I'd ever done before. Um, my largest audience in Scotland, um, of 13,500 people, which was quite incredible. Um, and I was performing Loch Marie Islands, that wonderful song, um, alongside an utterly stellar lineup
Yeah.
of the finest musicians in Scotland. Um, and Gary Innes is to be, if I ever wore a hat, I would take it off to him. He is a powerhouse and he never stops. I mean, the man is just you can't ever seem to stop him in what he wants to do, and he's just incredible. But he that I was invited to perform and to celebrate the late great Fergie MacDonald,
Mm.
MBE, who was a dear friend and a friend to many in the traditional scene, the music scene in
Yeah.
Scotland. Um, and we came together, all of us, to celebrate a really great man. And the evening, it passed in rather a blur, but I remember some of parts of it, and it was just such spectacularly good fun. Such good fun, and uh, and I don't think it's something I'm ever going to forget. Certainly not.
Yeah. And when you watch it on, it's like with a lot of these concerts, but when you watch it on TV, especially because the venue to me looks like it's got no roof. It
Mm,
shows that they all seem like they're enjoying themselves a lot more than you would normally. If you watch, like, I don't know, Oasis perform, if they ever filmed a gig, you would see people looking like they were crying or swaying
yeah,
side to side or whatever. But when you watch this, they're all jumping up and down, singing along, and having a whale of a time. Why do you
yeah.
think that? Why do you think they're having so much fun? Is it because of the music, or do you think it's because it's because of the people that are there and the energy that's in that venue?
I think it's because they're all drunk, and also the well, no, that's not fair. I think the music is spectacularly
Yeah,
good. I mean, the bands were so amazing. I mean,
yeah,
you can't help but move when you listen to Skerryvore or to Talisk or to Rura or to one of these bands, Manrand indeed,
yeah,
who are performing that night. And people love their music, and people love any excuse to go and get dressed up and have a couple of drinks and have a boogie. I mean, it's like everything else.
yeah,
It was a truly special evening, and Gary's done that now for a good number of years, and every year they just get bigger and bigger. And of course, he's taken it over to the United States. They were in Carnegie Hall. Um, a really amazing
yeah.
time, and he's done very very well, very very well indeed. And it was just people love it because it's a great night, and they know it's a great night out, and that's why they love it.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the roster of shows that are on BBC Alabama, not just your documentaries or people cycling and
Mm.
learning about the culture as well, I think that the music scene is showcased really well. Do you think that that's for you personally? Do you think that sort of helps to grow the audience of traditional music because there's so much variety on TV that represents your area of the industry?
Oh, no doubt. And people come to watch the programs on BBC Alba because they know they're going to get a very high standard of broadcasting and a very high standard of television. Um, and I've been very fortunate to have played my part as I said, my part in that, my rather small part in that. And uh, people do come to see what's new, what's fresh, what's happening, and also they like to see the older programs which have been broadcast for many years and are shown occasionally. And that's the beauty of BBC Alba is that there's something for everybody, almost every single night. There's going to be something to satisfy the needs of all,
Yeah.
and which is unusual for a television
Yeah.
channel, but Gaelic does it very, very well.
Yeah, and I think what it does even better is that in the world of comedy, especially they say that the sketch shows are dying out and whatnot, but I really love that BBC Oliver backs that because there's been if I say this right, there's been two different sketch shows on BBC Oliver that have lasted rather long time, like having Donald Trump being speaking in Gaelic because his brother's from Scotland, which I do think is probably not accurate, not p possible. Somehow it's not possible. And I think yeah, adds to the joke. But why do you think that BBC Limited is one of those channels that are willing to do things that no other channel are doing at the moment?
Well, it's because I believe we've got some very, very talented writers. We have some very talented performers and actors, and we have some uh, wonderful people who think about the most extraordinary things and sketches and ridiculous ideas.
Yeah,
Um, and again, people like that. People enjoy that stuff. And also, the Gale were very good at being able to laugh at ourselves.
yeah,
Um, which helps. I think if you've got a group of people who are able to
Yeah,
laugh at themselves, then it helps a great deal. And we're very, very good at doing that sort of thing. And people like that. People like the fact that it's not too serious or not
yeah,
too heavy or not too, that, we can talk about serious things in a way which is educational,
mm,
but also be able to have a laugh at
yeah.
ourselves. And that's a very important thing for me.
Yeah. And as we get to this point in the interview, we've learned a lot more about you. For anyone that's watching that's really interested in learning to sing and mainly in the traditional world, what advice would you give someone that wants to get into the traditional music scene?
The traditional music scene is vibrant and there is great variety, and it's a very broad church. There's all these wonderful different styles, different interpretations, different singers, different people, and different personalities, and they all have a place within the scene, and it's a very accepting scene, and we all have a role to play in it. And the thing would be is to leave your inhibitions at the door and to just try it.
Yeah,
Go to the sessions, go to the concerts, meet people, talk to people, sing a song when somebody asks you and just go for it. Really, it's the only thing you can do. Um, because if you just sit about and wait for somebody to ask you, it's never going to happen. You have to just be able to get out into sometimes might be nervous as hell, but if you're at a ceilidh or if you're at a gathering or it's an informal session, sing a song,
yeah,
and just keep doing that. And many, many great musicians have started out that way. Um, so but we're a very welcoming tribe,
yeah.
certainly. And if people want to come and give it a shot, then they're always very welcome to.
Yeah. And when you think of traditional music and folk music, it's I'm gonna use it in a similar bracket. What do you think makes that music so enjoyable? Is it because it uses instruments that you wouldn't hear normally in rock, pop, or opera?
I think so, and I think the music really resonates with people. It really, really resonates with people. And there's something about Gaelic music in particular which just manages to seep into you, um, and leave you feeling, you know, as though you've really been touched by something very special. I think it's what it does to me. And to be able to do that for other people is always a marvelous thing. And I think that's why, because it resonates so much with different people for so many different reasons. And people will have their own reasons as to why Gaelic resonates with them. Um, they feel as though, it might be, their grandparents came from Gaelic speaking communities, or maybe they don't have any connection to it at all. Maybe it's the music that
Yeah,
moves them. It could be the language itself, the words of the music that moves them. Um, why it moves so many, I don't know, but I just know because it's a very, very special music, and I was always very, very fortunate to have been, um, to have grown up with it.
yeah,
Um, and it's almost spiritual, I think.
yeah.
It really, it sounds it. It almost is.
Yeah, and I think that what makes, to me personally, what makes it so special is that you can listen to the Beatles or Jody Mitchell, and a lot of these things sound very similar. If you think of certain bands from the 60s, they probably all sound very similar to the Beatles. But when you listen to traditional music, it sounds different each time, and I think that you get more of a unique sound to it. Would you say that that's another draw into it because you can listen to the Beach Boys and go, oh, that's really nice, but then you can really get into the emotion behind traditional music because you can like take in the words a lot more.
I think you're absolutely right, and also the fact that with Gaelic music, everybody's interpretation of a song is going to be entirely different,
Mhm.
because we're told to be different. You have to bring to the music your
Yeah,
own style, your own voice, your own interpretation of everything, because that is the tradition, that is the oral tradition, as we would
yeah,
say. Um, and it is hugely important. And I think that is a big draw for a lot of people. Absolutely, a lot of people, yes.
yeah. And as we get further into this interview, what without giving away if you're not allowed to due to NDAs because they're literally everywhere. What upcoming projects are you excited for the audience to either see or hear or look at?
Oh, I have a wonderful few concerts coming up mostly in Glasgow over the next few weeks and months. Um, I get asked to do a variety of things through both the university, the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and different shows where people want Gaelic or maybe some English or they want maybe some classical music. I take classical instruction as well through the university, which is always wonderful fun and always great to be able to do something a little bit different and to perform music which is different. So there's a huge just uh, February. I've got a concert, for example, in Perth with the Scottish Fiddle Orchestra on the 28th of February. And the night before that, I'm hosting a concert in Glasgow for the Glasgow Isle Gaelic Choir, which has been a staple choir in the Glasgow Gaelic scene for a very, very long time. Um, Burns Night tomorrow night concert here in Glasgow. So there's a huge array of. I'm going right up into December as well, working with a Gaelic techno group as well in April, which back
Yeah,
in the Barrowlands, which will be great
yeah,
fun. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening.
yeah. And you mentioned there techno. How do you think that the Gaelic work and why do you think the Gaelic works well with techno?
I just think it opens it up to a brand new audience, and people want to hear something different.
Yeah,
People want to hear something that think, oh, that can't possibly work, and yet it works so well.
yeah,
Um, and great fun, and people respond very well to it, and the kids all go out to the clubs and they have great fun with it, and I have great fun performing it to them.
yeah,
And again, something which I would never usually look at, but
yeah.
it just seems it's one of these things that just works.
Yeah.
Just works so well.
And I think I can sort of like get a sense of if you go to a club, you listen to whatever rap music's going on, whoever's singing the rap, rapping. But I think it seems more gentle and less like I'm not going to use the word violent, but less aggressive, having the techno that the people really love, but having the gentleness of Gaelic. Do you think that matches well because you get a sense of it's what the kids might be listening to in the techno sense, but it's also harks back to tradition to get people into that music.
I think so, and I think you're quite right in what you say. It's not abrasive in any sort of way. It's very gentle for techno. It's very um, easy listening in a way. Well, not quite easy listening, but it's not full on. I
Yeah,
don't find it full on,
yeah,
which means and the boys in the band, the Vartos boys who create this music are so genuine and so sweet and very very lovely to get on with. Um, and I've done a lot of work with them, and
yeah,
hopefully we'll do an awful lot more work with them.
yeah,
Um, and so I enjoy it immensely. And again, something very very different.
yeah. And you mentioned orchestras, and I think that orchestrated music is like it's on another level itself. Why do you think that most music works better when you add the power and the passion of an orchestra?
Oh, I think orchestral music is some of the most beautiful music in the world. And you think of Brahms and Rachmaninoff, for example, two of my favorites. And there's something about being overcome with this wave of sound. I mean, when you think of an orchestra and the layout, you have your strings right in front of you, and then you have your brass and your woodwind and your percussion. And it's just, it's when you have so many souls working on a piece of music together, and then it is delivered to an audience, and they've put everything they possibly can into this. They're playing as an individual with their own style whilst being able to create something totally uniform.
Yeah,
It's such a skill. It is such a skill. And I've been very fortunate to be friends with some really exceptionally talented classical musicians. And I've watched them many times performing together in an orchestral setting, and my heart is just bursting every time to be sitting and listening to this music live. It heals the soul, in my view, and of course you add that to anything,
Yeah.
and it will elevate it immeasurably.
Yeah.
You know?
And do you think that using orchestral music in both TV and film, do you think that sort of helps to get a younger generation into that type of music? Because you might watch, let's say, an Avengers film
Uh-huh.
and someone's about to be like murdered because they're a villain, and they have that amazing orchestral piece. Do you reckon that sort of helps to get people into that? Because they might look elsewhere after they've listened to that soundtrack 8 times.
Oh, I think so. And of course, orchestral music will be able to just hit you in a way that popular music can't,
Yeah,
because they have the volume of people, they have the sheer scale of sound is incomparable with anything else. I mean, you cannot get the sound of an orchestra from anything that is not an orchestra.
yeah,
And that's why it works. And like you say, for films and for other things, it is just, it is a beautiful art form, and one which is so difficult to master and one which is so very difficult to maintain.
yeah.
But it is really one of the elite art forms.
And when you listen to um, music in general, I think it's more prevalent with traditional music. Why do you think the traditional music has more of a storytelling feel to it than you would say like popular music?
I would say all music tells a story. Um, it depends a lot on the person performing the music. Now, you referenced Joni Mitchell. If I think of Joni Mitchell, people like Joni Mitchell and Joan Baez, for example, great quasi folk pop. There's a real mixture of stuff that they do with their music, but only they could deliver their songs in such a way that it really hits you, and
Yeah,
you think that is an incredible. You give it to somebody else, and maybe they're not going to make the same job of it. It's not going to
yeah,
be, you know, it's like you've been given this glorious weapon to be your lyrics to fire out to an audience, but it just might not hit them, because it's not your story to tell. And I can find that can be very difficult with newer music
yeah,
because a lot of new music composed is very personal, very,
mm,
very personal.
yeah,
Whereas, and to be able to find a singer to do it justice is very difficult.
yeah,
Um, Conversely, with the traditional music, the authors have been dead for centuries.
yeah,
So you are able to take this thing and to make it entirely your
yeah,
own. And that is a slight difference. Now, you know, I listen to some of Joan Baez's music, and I think it's glorious. My partner is a huge fan of Joni Mitchell, and the music, and also music means something to people if it helps you going through a certain time of your life, then that music's going to mean something to you. And it might not be something you ordinarily listen to, but that could be anything. It could be sacred music, it could be popular music, traditional music, classical music, jazz. It could be absolutely anything. Um, but it depends on the storyteller
yeah.
rather than the story itself. It depends on the teller of the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, and do you think that when you listen to like three different versions of the same song, do you think you get the feeling that you can hear the different ways of it being performed, or do you think that it like loses some of what made that song good in the first place?
You can always tell somebody who's recording a song simply because they like the song.
Yeah,
And you can tell somebody who's singing the song because the song means something. And there's a great difference. I sing songs because I like the songs,
yeah,
but somebody else will sing the same song, and I'll sit there and I'll be reduced to tears
yeah,
because I can't do it that way because it doesn't mean to me what it means to them.
yeah,
And it's a very special, special thing.
yeah. And throughout your career and the songs that you've sung, do you have a particular song that really resonates with you on a level that you wouldn't have with any other traditional song?
I would say possibly, but it would be very difficult to pick one because they all mean such different things to me. Um, so I could never. But everybody asks me, "What's your favorite?" I say, "I really don't have one." I couldn't pick one. One that means more to me than any of the others.
Yeah.
Uh, it would be a tie, you know. I mean, I couldn't pick just the one.
Yeah, and they're just beautiful, and I think the way you sing it just makes it even more beautiful because from where I'm sat, which is a chair, but from but from the angle I'm at, which is an outsider's point of view from all this, because I would say that my music taste is a little bit odd, 1914 to early 2000s, but the early 2000s
Fabulous, fabulous, yeah.
it is a debate depending on what year you would say is early ends. But it's
Hmm.
you sort of when I first hear these songs, and especially when you perform, you can tell that there's that passion comes across,
Hmm.
and I think they just become more enjoyable because it's the first time I'm hearing them. Do you think that that is another reason why you love performing these things, is because there is people like me that are hearing them for the very first time?
It's always a great joy when you're able to take the music to somebody who's never heard it before. It's always a wonderful thing for people to go, "Wow, that's incredible," um, and it's like I said, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, there's nothing quite like singing to a group of people who know the songs,
Yeah,
but to be able to take it to a group of people who have never heard it before is a very wonderful thing. And it's a bit like a showy offy thing. You think, well,
yeah,
and you should be very proud of it. You think, well, this is my language, this is my culture,
yeah.
and now I get to show it off. It's a very joyful sort of thing indeed. So absolutely, I love doing that.
Yeah, and I think it shows how important that not only is to keep the music alive, but is to keep the tradition of the language and the words. And I think that fuels my passion in this world of languages that you would quote unquote say are trying to come back. Like Manx is another great example of
Mm,
I don't know if it's changed since the news report, but there's a news report where there's one school in the whole of the island that are learning the language and the kids are teaching the parents.
yes.
And that's really fascinating. And then you have like Welsh where they're trying to get more people to speak it. And you've got like comedians like Mike Bubbins, who is quite well known in a broader sense, trying to learn the language. Do you think that having all these influences from other areas, do you think that sort of helps shone a spotlight on it? Because not only are you trying to spotlight Gaelic, you're also trying to spotlight the surrounding languages. Do you think that's the positive step? Because once someone learns about one language, then it ricochets into learning about the others.
Oh yes, I think so. And anything we can do to help out our Celtic brethren is always a good idea, you know. And I've worked with Irish singers, Welsh singers, Cornish singers, Breton singers, Galician and singers, um, and it's always marvelous fun, and it's always a wonderful thing to be able to take that to other places, and for them to be able to take that away with them, and to show off your own language and to an international group is always great fun anyway. Um, but it is very special. I always find it very special when we work together with the Welsh and the Gaelic and Irish singers and Cornish, for example, um, because it shows that we're all really after the same thing, and that's we should all be very proud and very careful of our folk cultures because it's the thing which is defines us, and it's the thing which gives us our being is that, and I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, and I think one of the next steps, I think that will even enhance it further, and Wales did it once upon a time, and then they couldn't do it anymore because of Britain, because of England, because we wanted to have a go again. But I
Mhm.
think having the Gaelic music on Junior Eurovision, because with Eurovision, a lot of it's all in English, but with Junior Eurovision, the kids are encouraged speaking their own language. So when Wales did it, they had their participants singing Welsh, and then when you get the Irish contestant, they speaking in Irish because and they do all the competition in Irish because they're trying to showcase that the youth are still enjoying the language. Do you think that that would be a positive move to help getting more young people learning the language if you have them on a world stage like Junior Eurovision?
Of course, and I think it'll show them that actually doing that is cool. singing in Gaelic is cool, singing in Welsh is cool because it is cool, singing in Irish is cool.
Yeah,
Um, and look at the things which are available to those who do it. And I think more power to these people who are organizing truly international, big, substantial performances for this glorious music. And I'm a huge fan. I mean, Joy Dunlop, I spoke about earlier on.
yeah,
She took a Eurovision choir to Europe, and they were singing a Gaelic choir to Eurovision, and
yeah,
it went down a storm.
yeah,
And again, putting Gaelic on that international level where it belongs is a massive thing. Massive thing. It's
yeah,
it's really, really important.
yeah.
Seriously important.
Yeah, and I watched a fantastic documentary about the Irish participant that went last year, and you can see that the kids were really involved in it. Even though it might not seem like they're all Irish speakers, they were still into it because it's their friend, and and
Yeah,
it and it meant that they'll want to learn the language to join in with that passion. And do you think that
yeah.
that's the way forward? Is that once you get one person doing it, and they become like the cool kids, then everyone wants to join in.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, somebody sees it and they decide, actually, yeah, that's really cool, and I want to do that.
Yeah,
And it's absolutely what they'll do. And it's a case of inspiring others to be able to feel as though they belong in the scene and to be able to take part in it.
yeah.
And that's our job, and that's what we all should be doing. So no, I absolutely agree with you there. Yes.
And so there we have it. Another extraordinary and dictionary defining interview. Now, if you've been inspired to learn Gaelic after watching this interview, then as we've said, Speak Gaelic and Duolingo are a good option because, funnily enough, there A, there's a Speak Gaelic website, and B, there series one. I think it must be most of the series are available still on the BBC iPlayer and, if I'm not mistaken, BBC Sounds if you don't want to watch it but you do want to listen to it whilst you're walking your miniature schnauzer,
Mhm.
um, which is a breed of dog that I'm not too sure what they look like, but we roll on. So, thank you for letting me interview you.
Thank you very much. I've had a lovely time.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. There'll be more interviews from me. And remember, no, I've forgotten.